We've all seen this real decline in the last 5 to 6 years of walleye, but most importantly, there are no small fish anymore. You catch a big one once in a while, but the little ones are gone. So we think that's something to do, obviously, with spawning. It's not working. And one of the things that's done in the United States very successfully, I've been up here 25 years with a cottage, but lived in the States for a long time, is taking fry and redistributing them from the spawning grounds throughout the same lake system. And in the States, that's not really considered stocking. It's just considered helping the natural reproduction of the fish in the water. Here, we run into a barrier because they consider that stocking, and because Kesheq, Wigmog, and Sawyers are natural lake trout lakes, there's, I guess they've come up with something, past some kind of a guideline that says you can't stock anything else in a lake trout lake. So that's kind of the barrier for us here. And it's unfortunate because the lake trout fishery, I guess, is existent in Sawyer and Kesheq Wig, but it's minimal, not too active. I guess ice fishing is to an extent.
Right.
But the walleye fishery was pretty strong. I mean, Dave Flowers, who I'm sure you know, did something about in 2000 with rehabbing the spawning ground, and for about 15 years we had really nice walleye fishing. And then it literally went like that. So there's a lot of things going on, but rehabbing the spawning ground is one thing. But I'd like to get an opinion on what is stocking. I know if you go from one lake that doesn't have walleye and put walleye in it, that's stocking. But if a lake has natural producing walleye and all you're doing is helping them along, is that stocking?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that question. A lot of folks, the Minister of Natural Resources would know the answer to that question. If you need the answer, I can work with you to get that answer and just
I'm just curious because it seems like we're hitting that brick wall, but I'm not sure we're really stocking with what we want to do.
Right.
And maybe we are. We'll find out.
Yeah. I'm happy to work with you to get that answer.
Okay. Thanks.
Super. I'll expect a reply, Jamie.
Absolutely, yeah. What it exactly is stocking, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, any other questions from Jamie? No? I guess you satisfied everybody.
That was painless.
That was very painless. Well, we think highly of you, Jamie.
Oh, thank you, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
And I was very pleased when you agreed to come and speak to us. And thank you for bringing us up to date on the COVID issue, because COVID has been a real tough time for us here. We've had to cut back on our volunteer activity. We've had to shut down our wild game dinner and our, all our fundraising activities. So the opportunity that you're saying that maybe there's some daylight at the end of the tunnel is really, really encouraging for us. So anyhow, as a small token of our appreciation, I'd like you to accept this book. This book is a map of all of the lakes in Halliburton County that are stocked.
Oh, nice.
Not all the lakes in the county, but all the lakes that we stock, when we stock them, and the number of fish that we stock as well. And that's fish that are raised not only here, but come from the MNRF, from their stocking activities that they bring in and stock in our lakes as well. So a little bit of reading for you.
Thank you.
And just a small token of our appreciation. And I understand that you're heading from here to Ottawa, going back to work.
Yeah.
So we do thank you for coming out of your way to come up here and speak to us. Now, Randy.
Now that I know that you have to go, there is something I would like to.
I know that.
Can I, do you mind if
Carry
I
on.
jump in here? Okay. I won't go through the summary of all our stocking, I'll do that later. But I just want to bring this up. A couple of years ago, like since you say you're going to be talking to the minister,
Can I take a notepad here?
maybe. I can always get you something.
Okay.
So, a couple of years ago, you may be familiar with this, but I want to set the record straight. A couple of years ago, the ministry decided that, we'll back up a little bit. For 20 years, our lake trout production of Halliburton gold has been done as a partnership with the MNR. Okay, this hatchery was built to support that program. For those that don't know, the Halbert Gold are unique to, they're only found in this area, in a few lakes. Basically, they're geographically significant for this area. Okay, they go all the way back to when the ice melted after the last ice age. So they were discovered back in the 90s, and since then, for 20 years, we've been raising them. The way we do that is we would do a wild egg collection up at Halls Lake in general, but we have been to Redstone and over the years. Problem with raising lake trout is, well, first of all, we and our sister hatchery over in Bancroft are the only two community hatcheries in Ontario that raise lake trout. Okay? And everyone else raises, salmonoids, walleye, various other trout. What makes lake trout unique is the fact that they spawn on mid-lake shoals, 8 to 12 feet of water. So you have to go get them. All the other fish, when you think about it, while eggs are collected when the fish come up a tributary to spawn or come to the shoreline to spawn, lake trout are their own little group in that regard. Okay, so for the last 20 years, what we've done is the MNR would go out on the spawning beds at night, usually only one night a year, depending on the weather, of course. It may or may not, but as a rule, it may or may not be 2 nights, but normally it's one. They would bring the fish, so they would net the fish, bring them to us, and we did everything else. We segregate them as males and females. We do the milk and egg collection. We do fertilization. We do everything, and we raise those fish for about 18, 19 months when they are released. Now, they don't, as a rule, they do not go back to Halls Lake. They will go to 10 or 12 other lakes in our area, right, that also have halibut gold in them. So that does 2 things, right? It helps the resident populations as well as maintaining the genetic strains. Okay, so I'll try not to get too angry here. So 2 years ago, the MNR decided that they weren't going to help us with that anymore. And initially it was just, we're not helping you. Through meetings back and forth, we were able to get a commitment from the acting district manager that it would be a 2-year transition process. And we don't have a lot to say, right? So the way that was supposed to work was the first year of the transition, our members would be trained. They'd be allowed to go out in the MNR boat, see how this is done, and then on the second year, we would do it, and they would stand back and basically coach. Well, that all fell apart. Okay, in the first year, we weren't allowed in boats, and they just ended up bringing us the fish. Second year, this year, they said, and maybe understandably because of COVID, they weren't going to help at all. So we made a very difficult decision to cancel our egg collection for a number of reasons. One, we don't have the training, we don't have the equipment. The vast majority of our volunteers are in their 60s and 70s. So for a safety issue as well. Right? So for the first time in 20 years, we did not do a wild egg collection this year. I don't see it getting any better. the biggest thing I wanted to say here, mainly for the press, is there was an article in the paper a little while ago, and for the most part, the information was good. But one thing that the M&R came back with was, it's not our fault that they canceled, it was the HHOA who canceled. Well, we canceled, yes, that was our decision, but it was based on the fact that they said they weren't going to help us, and we have not had the training, we don't have the equipment, and so on and so forth. Okay, so my question for the minister would be, if you are talking to him, is what difference does one night a year make for us and Bancroft to the big scheme of things, right? It's ridiculous, because in the same year they announced they weren't going to help us with wild egg collection. There's Facebook posts and stuff from the Port government showing, basically it's a photo op of local politicians and Doug Ford and the M&R staff and local community hatchery volunteers all working together in the river helping to collect wild eggs, right? And this is the exact same year, I have this stuff, this is the exact same year that we're told, oh no, we're not helping you guys anymore. And their GovSpeak has something to do with the continuity across the province. Well, there has to be exceptions, because we are the only ones that raise lake trout, right? And they're not even seeing that. And so, we're not done yet, but in our opinion, it seems to, this decision seems to have come not so much from the top minister's office, but rather somewhere down that chain of bureaucracy, and she's in hiding. So I just want to set the record straight and ask you if there is any way that you can maybe help with this. Letters have been written by local councils,
Right.
about tourism, and right, it's a big deal up here, and it's a shame that we're not allowed to do something for the first time. You know, it really is a shame.
Right.
You know, this is a heritage species, it's you know, and that's all I'm asking, Jamie, is if there's any way you can help, I'd greatly appreciate it. We all would.
Sure. Okay, no problem. Yeah, I remember when you took me on a tour. How long ago was that? 2 years ago?
About 2 years.
2 years? Oh, yeah, you're
Could
showing
be 3. Yeah.
3? Time flies. Yeah, I remember you showing me the Halliburton Gold. I will commit to you that I will find out where. I'll speak to Lori Scott first, because I want to see where she is at on this, and then work to figure out, get more information.
And she should be aware, because, I mean, letters have been written from our local council here, county council, and we're about to, pardon the expression, raise stink again. Because it's sad, like in next year, not this May, okay, well, we have goals right now from our egg collection last year, but that's it. So what it means is there's about 10 or 12 lakes in a year from this coming May that will not get fish, right? Because we don't put manitous, which are another species of lake trout, we don't put them in lakes that have the goals for genetic reasons, right? And they're basically walking away from a partnership, and it makes no sense to us.
Can you do me a favor? Can you send me some of the correspondence you've sent in?
Yeah, I personally, I have a letter that I have written to the minister, well, Eric did, that we sent. But yeah, I don't have copies of what the counties have.
Right, if you work together with me, and I'll send it to Jamie.
Sounds good.
You want that way I can get up to speed.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Jamie, the article that they're referring to, that the Highlander, it's posted on their website under news.
Okay.
I reposted it, and it's a very good article with lots of facts and figures.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, like I say, the only thing in the Highlander was that I disagreed with was the ministry's quote
Yeah,
as to why this happened, right? Everything else was fine.
but actually it's good the ministry quote has been quoted because now you have proof of what they were saying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I know. It came directly from their PR person in the, because I talked to Joseph as well about it, and, but anyways, yeah, we'll get you as much information.
Yeah, so I can get up to speed with it, I'll mention that to Lori. We speak a couple times a week, so I'll add that to the agenda.
Any other,
No, that's it for me for now. I'll do the summary later.
Thank you, everyone.
Jamie, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. You have a safe drive to Ottawa, it's starting to snow, so I hope you got your snows on.
Yes, I do.
Perfect.
Just before it turned to 17 degrees, I got them on.
Take the buffer to eat on your way.
Oh, yes, I'm gonna actually grab it.
Grab
That's okay.
something to chew on, munch away with.
Perfect, I like the sounds of that.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing, by the way.
Hi, Jamie.
I'll send you a photo. Okay, thank you. Thank you, nice to see everyone. Keep up the good work. Thank you, everyone.
Drive safe.
I will try. I will try.
Okay, in my agenda, I had a pause for a coffee break, but if that's not on the cards, we'll just keep going. Anybody want to stop for a coffee? Okay. All right, I've distributed the minutes of the last AGM, which was December the 8th of last year. And I hope you've had a chance to review them. And I would like to have an acceptance of these minutes. Okay, Julie and Dan?
Yep.
Perfect. And if we could get a financial report from Dave Armstrong now. Dave, if you want to come up to the front here. While Dave's doing that, I really appreciated the comments from Jamie about where, with the opportunity that we should have with dealing with the MNRF to resolve the issue with harvesting the halberd gold. Thanks, Dave. That's an integral part of our operation here at the hatchery is the halberd goldfish. So it's very important, and hopefully with Jamie's involvement, we might see some headway in that. Anyhow, Dave, floor is yours.
Yes, I'm Dave Armstrong, the treasurer. I've been the treasurer for almost 3 years, and this is my first opportunity due to family commitments that I've been able to address it. So I just wanted to start off. My wife and I were out to dinner with 2 other couples on Friday night, and at McKeck's, and waitress came up and she looked at the other 2 guys, and they were wearing black and white checked shirts, and she turned to me and she said, "Didn't you get the memo?" and one of the gentlemen said, No, he's just a city slicker. So, I mean, we've only been up here about 5 years, and I did spend virtually all of my career on Bay Street as an accountant in one of the big 5 banks. So, this is quite different. My wife was quite surprised when she said, "You're going to be the treasurer of an outdoor association? You don't hunt your fish." I said, "I know, but I know accounting, so I think I'll manage." So, I was just looking through the last year's minutes, and basically at this time last year, we were in a little bit of a financial conundrum, or not a financial situation, because we had spent huge amounts of money, both the government's money and our own, on the Goulds Creek project. So at this point last year, the project was essentially finished. We'd spent all the money, including our own, but we had still to get back roughly almost $19,000 from the 2 levels of government and our HST refund. So we were basically going week to week, looking what bills we could pay, until finally in December the money rolled in, and we had no reserves of term deposits, nothing like that. So it was a bit touch and go. It was an unusual situation I'd never personally been in. So, but fortunately, by the time December rolled around, the government finally came through with their last installments, and they came through with HST. So we were in, I could breathe a sigh of relief that we were in a good financial situation, and that continued for the rest of the year. So if you look at the, no, not in the wrong order here. Yeah, so if we start off the top page, that's just the income statement for our year ended July 2020. And despite, as I said, a little bit of a rocky start with funding, we started off with a good year. We had the income coming in from the government for the final payback. We had the successful Septemberfest, I guess in September 2019. We had a lot of funding from various government levels, and if you can see they're all under donations. The County of Halliburton, the County of Highlands East. We have our rental agreement with the Land Between. We had a number of lake associations, and I guess appreciation for what we do to their lakes. We've had donation from them. We get funding from the Community Hatchery Program. So all in all, it added up quite well. We also had the Barrel Booze Lottery that brought in over $5,000. Our Stock Lake books, which we generously gave a copy to Jamie, but we did very well in that. Most of the cost of producing those books was in the prior physical year, so all of our sales during this past year have basically just been net income to us, no expenses. And then as you can see, we did sell tickets for Wild Game Dinner, and we bought the meat, and then COVID-19 hit, and we had to cancel that. So we were actually able to, just this past month, we decided that we would actually sell the meat. It had been 6 months, so it was still quite edible. It had all been frozen ever since then. But we didn't want to take the risk of waiting another 6 months, maybe even a year, and then using that meat. So we said, okay, well, and we had a huge, very quick response. They sold out in 24 hours type thing. So that was good. So we now have that money set aside to rebuy the meat whenever we can arrange the Wild Game Dinner. Yeah, so the other thing is, if you look at the income statement, it shows we made a profit of $13,000, but what the key unusual item in there is the funding that we finally received for Gould's Crate. So that really related to money we spent in the prior year. So if I take that off, we would show a $6,000 loss. And most of that can be attributed to the fact that in March, we basically shut down. We had no rental income, we had our Wild Game Dinner canceled. Even membership started to drop off as people kind of, isolated themselves. They weren't out as much. Even the hatchery, we were limited the volunteers coming in. We still had to feed fish, but that was on a very, just one person at a time coming in. In fact, we had one individual who did a lot of that work. So if we adjust for the 19 and then for the environmental factors, we basically broke even, which is really, as a not-for-profit, what we're supposed to do. We should pay, we shouldn't be making a lot of money, but also we have to not lose money, otherwise we'd be out of business. And then our expenses are generally in line. One of the big projects that we did have last year, that once we got the extra funding in, was to upgrade our lighting. As you can see, I'm sure those that were here last year would remember how somewhat